The Missouri Tigers and Vanderbilt Commodores set to do battle at Faurot Field in the SEC opener for each of these respective schools. We're here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game between the Tigers and the Commodores. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips. He is Cole Thompson. And again, we're breaking down this SEC matchup in Columbia, Missouri. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get those. You can also find us all across social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. This segment brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. Go to mybookie.ag and use promo code SECU at sign up to receive a special welcome offer on your first deposit. That's mybookie.ag, promo code SECU to get that special welcome offer today. The Missouri Tigers welcome Vanderbilt to Faurot Field in the SEC opener for each of these respective schools. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game, and helping me do so, my good friend and supporter of Pavia Power in Nashville, most notably Cole Thompson. He joins me, and if in case you guys are wondering, I intentionally put Cole in this game after last weekend's events. Cole, thank you so much for taking the time.
I hate you. I hate you so much. I can't believe you had me doing this. You know,
listen, you and I both became Diego Pavia stans.
You don't understand.
So we both have to suffer.
Christopher, you don't understand. I have my quarterback. The man that I would offer a full ride scholarship to Thompson Tech to be the Red Wolf star. I'd build a dynasty around this person. I'd make sure that he was not just number 2 on the field, but number 1 in my heart. But my number 1 bandwagon team, the team that I support, the team that I have winning it all this year, the place that I continue to wait for Eli Drinkwitz to call me to bang the drum before the start of kick is the Missouri Tigers. And now you're making me have to choose between 2 kids? This is tougher than Sophie's Choice for me, dude. This is not fun. This is absolutely my worst nightmare that you have to have. Now, I got to talk about both teams and play fairness, even though we both know I'm not going to, and I don't want to. So thank you for having me on this show.
The scenario I imagine I'm putting you in, Cole, and I don't know if this is going to really make sense, but it just came to my mind, is Pirates of the Caribbean, when Jack Sparrow gets banished to the island, and he says, a gentleman would give a man 2 pistols. They each have 1 shot. He said, a real gentleman will give him 2 pistols. He said, no, you'll have 1 pistol, and you can be the man to shoot the lady and starve to death. So that's essentially you. You are Jack Sparrow in this scenario with 1 pistol, with 1 shot, and you have to use it on somebody. So, sorry, you just have to do it.
Great. Can't wait for one fan base to finally go burn me to
That's about as good an analogy as I can make here.
Can't wait for this one. This is great. Thanks,
guys, again, Mizzou and Vandy squaring off 4:15 p.m. Eastern time kick on SEC Network at Faurot Field in Como. Cole, Missouri in this one sits right now a 21-point favorite. The over-under set at 53.5. Missouri leads the all-time series 11-4-1. Last meeting was last year. Missouri won 38-21, so not an absolute blowout, especially when you think about what Missouri was last year and what Vandy was, but the Tigers did get the victory in that game. And Cole, as we dive into this matchup, I think that's where we start, the SEC opener for both sides. But let's start with the doors, man. How do you bounce back? I mean, Vandy was the talk of the town going into last. It was, you know what sucked about it? They were such a fun story. Diego Pavia's got the swag. He's got the juice. He's comparing himself to Johnny Manziel. And I'm sitting here thinking, I took Vandy minus 10.5. Yeah. I thought the Commodores, going to hit the over on the Vegas win total, over under 2.5. Thought they were going to hit the over in week 3. And you go to Georgia State, and it was like you turned back into the pumpkin. You turned back into Vanderbilt. And it's like, here we are now. You're 3 touchdown dogs. Some would argue it's not enough. Can Diego Pavia and the boys bounce back, Cole? That's it. I mean, we got robbed. We got robbed of the 3-0 versus 3-0. We got robbed of being able to sit here and look at you all with a straight face and make this out to be some barn burner type of game. Watch out for the upset. And maybe we still can. I just don't know if I can make it straight a face anymore.
You know what the worst part is, Chris, is that both of these fan bases, the ones that were going to travel from Nashville and those in Como who have been calling for me to come, we have this as on our list of potential destinations for week 4. We're not going anymore because of it's not an undefeated matchup between 2 ragtag teams that certainly deserve more respect in the SEC. And I'm not going anymore. And that hurts me because of all I want to do is embrace my love for those in Como and also be able to see Pavia play in person. But regardless, you can't really blame him. He had over 300 yards of offense. He had 2 touchdowns on the day, didn't have a turnover. it was really just a bad, sloppy performance from the defense. 4.6 yards per play on the ground, over 375 yards through the day, 128 yards allowed by Ted Hurst. And then, of course, it was the late touchdown. You find a way to score. Cedric Alexander gets into the end zone. You think that you take the lead. You have the advantage. You're playing on the road as an SEC squad. And then immediately you just let them come on back and they take a 36-32 victory in Turner Field. I mean, that's how it goes. And I will say, when Dave and I did preview this game last week, we mentioned that playing away from Nashville may have been a problem. And also, the standard set by Del McGee when he was at Georgia was always going to be a case and scenario for this team. And the other thing that you have to realize is that Georgia State is one of those programs that plays the bottom dwellers of the SEC extremely tough. And now, once again, here they are hoisting the mantle and holding up the dub against a Vanderbilt team that had a lot of passion. And now it just feels like the writing is on the wall that it's not going to be the end-all be-all, but the road to 6 wins, the road to a bowl game, which I think many people in Nashville just want to see, is tougher. Now, with that being said, anything is possible. We just watched this last week. A very under-the-radar Boston College team made this thing interesting with explosive plays. And we watched a few weeks ago as a very highly touted Virginia Tech team lost a game because of explosive plays. So if I'm a Missouri fan, I feel confident in that we got a top 25 win. Even when we played our C-plus football, we still dominated. The score does not testify how well they were able to respond after being down early. But still, the last thing you want to do, these are the wins that count. Because of it's not just sending you to Atlanta, it's also making sure that you stay the course of being a top 10 team in college football and a team that's going to go to the college football playoff. So you cannot allow Diego Pavia. You cannot allow this offense to get hot by any means whatsoever. And the last thing you can do is allow an explosive play when you guys are still playing, I think, more consistent.
Cole, how important do you think this game is for Brady Cook? Do you feel like he's been great to this point? I just feel like as the schedule heats up, I think it's going to be really, really important for Brady Cook to kind of get going. I'm not saying he's been bad, obviously, but as SEC play begins, getting the best version of Brady, I think is going to be important. Like when you watch his game, do you feel like this is just who he is? Or again, he hasn't been bad. I'm not saying that, but it's kind of like I'm just waiting on him to put it in that next gear, if that makes sense.
I think that you're right about that. The big question that I have is when you have, let me phrase that. Start back. Let's regroup. The thing that stood out for me when it came to Missouri this offseason that nobody was talking about was, yes, you did lose Blake Baker. Yes, you lost a lot of talent defensively. Yes, you did have to replace several offensive linemen, and you lost arguably the most important factor, which was Cody Schrader being the heart and soul of that team. But you didn't lose your top 5 starting receivers. You didn't lose Marquise Johnson. You didn't lose Mookie Cooper. You didn't lose Joshua Manning. You didn't lose, arguably for my money, the best number 2 in the game, who can easily be a number 1 for most offenses in Theo Wease. And you didn't lose Luther Burden, who on any given Saturday at 20% is better than 75% of wide receivers in college football. And when you have that personnel and you already have that relationship and you're able to regroup by building an offensive line and getting quantity over quality with guys like Marcus Carroll and Nate Noel to make up for the lost production in Cody Schrader, and the schedule is manageable, why are we not seeing this team kind of have that type of respect? And then you watch as Brady Cook kind of has to deal with a little bit of flack, and you also see Luther Burden get down on his quarterback saying, you got to step up. You got to deliver. We are a team that sees the end goal not being good in the SEC, but being a college football playoff contender. And our defense before today was pitching a shutout. They were delivering when we couldn't. And we have to be the team because if we are the offense that last year was underappreciated, but overexceeded massive expectations, and a majority of us are back. This comes down to you. And I appreciate the fact that you have a guy that can utilize his legs. But the big thing that stands out is when you have this type of arsenal, when you have arguably for my money, the most underrated wide receiver core in the country, certainly not underrated in the SEC, but at the national level, it does not garner the same respect as Alabama. It does not garner the same respect as Texas. It does not garner the same respect as Oregon or Ohio State, but it can go toe to toe with them. The reason that you're held back is because of your quarterback. And I don't think that you need to turn the corner to Sam Horn, but I do think that this is a game where Brady Cook in the SEC, when you're going up against better defenses over the next few weeks, Texas A&M's on the horizon, Alabama's on the horizon, South Carolina is no longer a slouch. You can go ahead and pin them up however you want, but they're going to give you their best shot every single Saturday. You have to see your quarterback, a guy who has been a starter for 2 years and a guy that drastically exceeded expectations last year, kind of take reins and show this is why you don't want to mess around and play a Tiger team.
And yeah, Cole, as you look at the schedule, I mean, you got this game against Vandy. Don't sleep, obviously, on Diego Pavia and the boys and the potential they could pull the upset. But, I mean, you look realistically, this is your SEC opener. Then you've got the bye week. And then, Cole, things get very real. You go to Kyle Field. You've got that random non-conference game after at UMass, which is one of the most random games in college football this year. But then you've got Auburn coming to your place. You go to Bama, Oklahoma, that game at South Carolina you mentioned. So, you know, I'm not going to call this game against Vandy a tune-up by any means, but setting the tone, especially feeling good about yourself going in the bye week, really preparing and getting on the right foot for that game against Texas A&M at Kyle Field. I think it's critical. You know, again, you mentioned Brady Cook, but this entire football team, like they were a little sloppy against Boston College at times.
Too many explosive plays. Far too many explosive plays.
Indeed. There were some busts. There were absolutely some busts in that game too. I think that's what's so interesting, Cole, is again, you know, is Diego Pavia exactly Castellanos from Boston College? I don't know that that's necessarily the case, but like he gave them some problems. He gave them some fits. I think Diego Pavia can give them some fits as well. Like it's just another test for that Missouri defense. That's what we wanted to see last week. And I thought early on, BC jumps out to the 14-0 lead, and you give Mizzou a lot of credit for coming back. But you know, you can't afford to fall down again. That can't become a trend. So I think it'll be, you know, Vandy certainly is not what A&M's going to be, or certainly what Bama's going to be, or some of these teams down the stretch. But I think it's another solid test for Corey Batoon in that defense, and another dangerous player under center that they're going to have to go up against.
I think the other thing that you have to look at is if you're Vanderbilt, because I don't want to spend all the time about Missouri, you've seen what it's like to go up against a team that not only are you vastly, when it comes to talent perspective, inferior, but also one where they've kind of written you off before the game even kicked off. I mean, I can be the first person to say I had Virginia Tech in my college football playoff, and there's still a scenario where that happens, but the pathway to a 12-team postseason is a lot more daunting now for the Hokies when you don't have a win against an SEC opponent, and you aren't guaranteed more than one spot in the ACC. And they had delivered the first blow, and they kind of allowed Virginia Tech to work their way back in, so much so to where it was a conversation of, are we more impressed with how long Vanderbilt was able to hold on to a lead, or more disappointed that Virginia Tech wasn't as hot as we imagined that they were going to be at the start of the season, and they ended up coming away with the win. So when you look at Vanderbilt, this isn't a quote-unquote must-win game by any means. You can still find a way to hold your own against other opponents. You still got Ball State to where you can hit the over on the win total. A lot of people are still expecting you not to be a bowl-eligible team after losing to Georgia State. But at the same time, if you do get a way to come out and make this thing interesting, especially now that you have Clark Lee not waving the white flag on his tenure with his alma mater, but more so making it clear, if I'm going to go down my ship, I'm going to go down calling plays on defense. I'm going to go back to the basics of what I know how to do. Then I think that this could be a really interesting matchup. There are people out there that are going to say the 3.5 touchdown spread is far too lenient for a team that just lost to Georgia State, first-year head coach, brand new bunch of players that are all transfers on in, a guy who also was hired very late in the process because Sean Elliott decided to leave at the last second. But there's also this thought process of, we've seen what Vanderbilt can do when you count them out. And we've also seen what Vanderbilt can do when you give them an opportunity to strike. If these explosive plays are becoming a major problem for Corey Batoon's defense, where you're allowing a Boston College to stick around, for the most part, you felt really good about, for the most part, you felt really good about Missouri's game plan, but just the explosivity on the passing attack. If you allow Pavia to get hot, I'm not saying an upset's going to happen, but I am saying that things could get interesting, especially the way that Eli Stowers played. Last week was a really big star for this team for the Commodores, over 110 receiving yards.
That's a real mark. I mean, that's significant. And they need playmakers to step up, obviously. A big playmaker, too, I'm looking forward to in every single week when Mizzou takes the field. Cole, Luther Burden III, who was awesome against Boston College. I don't know if there's a more fun player in college football to watch, especially at least at that position.
Yeah.
I don't know what answer Clark Lee and company are going to have for him, because if they don't find one, he is going to have a career day. It is very, very possible. Cole, let's dive into it. Let's lock in some predictions. Your quarterback against your team, my friend. I'm going to put you on the spot. Who are you going with, Mizzou and Vandy and Como?
I'm pulling Sophie's choice and saying I cannot choose. I cannot choose. I can't pick which child. I must stay neutral until the end of. I want to see how Diego Pavia plays. The thing that is going to be really interesting is how do they spy him? The major asset that makes Pavia dangerous is his ability to keep his legs moving and his ability to extend plays outside the pocket. You watched it against Virginia Tech. You watched it against Alcorn State. You certainly watched it last week on the road in Georgia. He has this inertia that if you allow him to extend plays down the field, there's also the ability that he can easily tuck and run. So how are you going to spy him to make sure that whoever is that linebacker keeping an eye on number 2, make sure that his number 1 asset of creating opportunities is taken away? The other thing I'm really interested in, who steps up as the number 3 for Mizzou? We know that Luther Burden's number 1. We know that Theo Wees is arguably, for my money at least, the best number 2 in the game. We know they have a good rushing attack. But what happens when you have to play against those defenses that we talked about? Texas A&M, South Carolina, Alabama, down the stretch, Arkansas, depending on what they look like. If they're able to kind of turn the corner at some point, if those 2 targets are taken away, who steps up? Is it going to be potentially a Marquise Johnson? Is it going to be a Mookie Cooper? Is it going to be a Joshua Manning, who all have had moments where they've looked the part of a quality secondary option? But which one finally breaks free? Is it Brett Norfleet? Is it just having a 6'7" giant in the red zone that is unguardable by most defensive backs, and certainly from a size perspective can go toe-to-toe with linebackers, but from a speed, it's a mismatch nightmare. I want to pick Diego Pavia in terms of this being the quarterback that I think is special enough to hold his own against SEC opponents. And last year, people realized, listen, he went into Auburn. He had a good game plan. They schemed it up perfectly, and now he's doing it in the SEC. But Missouri's the better team. Missouri is the team that I have pegged as my bandwagon fandom of this year. I wouldn't be allowed to go to Como if I didn't pick him. I can replace a quarterback. I can't replace the love in my heart that I have for this Tiger Nation. I want to be able to go to a game. I want to be able to go to Como. Somebody welcome me. I will gladly represent SEC Unfiltered. Let me bang the drum. Let me be inside a Memorial Stadium. Let me sit on the rocks. Let me be a part of it. I think Missouri ends up not only winning this game, I think it's pretty close to actually beating the spread. I love you, Diego Pavia. You will always have a place at Thompson Tech, but give me the Tigers to win this one, 41-20.
Right on the spread. Good pick, Cole. Good pick. I find it interesting in this series, Cole, that it's outside of 2020, which 2020 was kind of a crapshoot, just a strange year, obviously, with COVID and stuff. This series has been pretty competitive, at least more competitive than you would expect. Like, again, I look at last year in a 17-point margin in that ball game, and you think of what Mizzou was and what Vandy was. And again, for whatever reason, Cole, these are just always hard-fought games for some reason. I think that's going to be the case again. What's interesting is Vandy's already slayed a giant this year in Virginia Tech. I mean, this is a different beast, but I don't think they're going to come in this game, even after losing to Georgia State. I don't think they're going to come into this game intimidated. I think Vandy's going to come in expecting to win the football game. I am picking Vandy to cover.
Okay.
To cover.
I was like, holy crap, really? You're going to be
picking Vandy to cover. I am not picking Vandy to win. I am going with Missouri. But I like Vandy with a plus 21. I don't know if it's going to be an official play for me, but I like Vandy in the plus 21. I think it's something like I'm going to lock this score in, but I'm going to go Missouri 34-17 over Vandy. But I think Vandy will cover. Like, I think Diego Pavia can present some issues, extend some drives, give Missouri some problems defensively. I think they're probably still kind of working through some things. I don't think it's going to play out like last week where Vandy jumps out to a 14-0 lead or something. But, I think Vanderbilt's good enough to just hang around, kind of, I don't know that the game, Cole, is ever really in doubt. I'm not saying that like we're gonna leave this game and be questioning Missouri and that they've got a bunch of issues. I just think it's gonna be, a hard-fought game with a quarterback who's going to be just annoying enough and just good enough, and I say annoying respectfully and complimentary, actually, to Diego Pavia, that he can keep them in this one. But at the end of the day, to your point, Missouri's the better team. Love what they are offensively. I do think Brady Cook will have a really good outing. I think Luther Burden challenging him, you love to see that from your leadership on your football team. I think that's going to be a positive. I think they're going to continue to run the football really, really well with Marcus Carroll and Nate Noel. Nate Noel's been fantastic, by the way, for them. I think they're going to continue to run it effectively. I don't think Drink is a guy that really cares about winning by 40 or 50 points. So I think it'll be kind of a ho-hum, workman-like performance. I like Vandy to cover, but I don't think the game's really ever in doubt. Missouri 34, Vandy 17. I wanted to see if I could get you there, though, for a moment. It looks like I did. So,
Chris, let me just make this clear to anybody out there. When we say annoying, it doesn't mean that you're a pest in a bad way. It means you're a pest in a good way.
Yeah.
But when you get to be the annoying quarterback, like watch the way that
Castellanos is annoying.
Castellanos is annoying.
Very annoying.
Watch Shane Beamer against Mark Stoops. It's annoying when you think that that's a guy that can say whatever he wants in the offseason and then back it up on the football field. Annoying's a good thing. It's great for college football. Diego Pavia is annoying. And I promise you, this is not the last time we're going to be talking about him in a positive light, potentially making this thing interesting in SEC play. He's already marched into Jordan-Hare Stadium once. I'm going to tell you what, you already know where my brain's at. You already know where I'm looking at this game.
So, guys, what do you think? Do you agree with us? Do you disagree? How do you feel it's going to play out when Missouri and Vandy do battle on Saturday at Faurot Field? Guys, appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get those as well. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. For Cole Thompson, I'm Chris Phillips. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we'll catch you on the other side.
MIC!